Russian army is fighting helplessly in Avdiivka and Bakhmut. Russia started to look for the solution on the border with Belarus. Ukrainian army neutralized a record number of Russian soldiers in one day. Great progress has begun on the Eastern Front. Russian commanders went crazy. Most of the soldiers who joined the army with mobilization began to flee from the front. Russian commanders are looking for deserted soldiers. In this process, news began to come that people close to Putin lost their lives one by one. Russia gave an ultimatum to Kiev. Lavrov announced that there will be no negotiations. Moscow's terms must be accepted by Kiev. Kiev stated that Russian ultimatums would not be taken seriously. Russia has made many statements that the war will continue. President of Ukraine Zelensky announced that Ukrainian army is ready for both defense and attack. "We are about to prepare our army for next year," Zelensky said. After the leader's statements, tensions rose considerably, especially on the Eastern Front. Very critical events are taking place. The violence of the war is higher than ever. In the early hours of the morning, it was stated that Russians took action to carry out repeated attacks. However, Russian army suffered the greatest loss of soldiers and military equipment of recent times as a result of the operations it initiated. In addition, Ukrainian army launched a comprehensive operation in response to the attacks of the Russians. The Russians carried out 2 airstrikes and 2 missile strikes. They also carried out more than 10 attacks with multiple launch rocket systems. According to the first statements, most of the attacks were carried out on Ukrainian positions. No casualties or injuries were reported as a result of the attacks. Ukrainian reconnaissance and intelligence units previously reported the Russian attacks to Ukrainian soldiers in the region. In this process, it was announced that Ukrainian soldiers entered the shelters and many soldiers changed fronts. While Russian forces continue their offensive operations on the Bakhmut and Avdiivka fronts, they are also trying to improve their tactical positions on the Lyman front. The Russians remain in a defensive position on other fronts. The aging army and ammunition problems made it impossible for Russia to organize an operation. As you can see, the vast majority of attacks are carried out with missiles, rockets, and unmanned aerial vehicles. After the deployment of air defense systems to the front line, Russian bombers and warplanes became irresistible to the Ukrainian positions. In the past 24 hours, Ukrainian warplanes have launched 4 attacks on Russian troop clusters. Ukraine's rocket forces and artillery units struck 2 Russian command posts, 2 military assembly areas, and a Russian ammunition storage point. As a result of the destruction of command centers and military assembly areas, more than 150 Russian soldiers were neutralized. The statements were made by Ukrainian General Staff in the morning. The failure of Russia in the attacks and the advance of Ukrainian army disrupted the coordination of Russian troops on many fronts. Russian soldiers cannot communicate with each other as Ukrainian army has destroyed many command centers. Since the soldiers could not communicate with each other, they began to flee from the front. The soldiers who joined Russian army with the mobilization are quite inexperienced. For this reason, the interruption of communication and the violent attacks of Ukrainian army caused these soldiers to start escaping from the front. In a video published on social media, it was revealed that 10 Russian soldiers fled from the front. A group of 10 inexperienced soldiers attacked at the front began to flee the region. According to the statements of the soldiers, 10 privates claimed that they took their friends to the safe zone after 2 of their friends were slightly injured. However, the escape of these soldiers from the front caused Ukrainian army to seize the main defense line. Experienced Ukrainian troops began operations by ambushing the surrounding defense lines after capturing the first line of defense. As a result of the escape of Russian soldiers, more than 20 Russian soldiers on other fronts were neutralized. All of Russian soldiers, whose coordination was broken, escaped from the defense line and retreated 11 kilometers to form a new defense line. In the published videos, it was seen that the Russian commanders went crazy. However, the soldiers stated that they joined the army under pressure. As a result, it was seen that the Russian commander hit the soldiers with a stock. As a result of the videos published, it is clearly seen that the Russian ground troops on the Eastern Front are experiencing major problems. Despite everything, Moscow continues to send in experienced soldiers to the defensive lines. But these problems began to explode. The departure of inexperienced soldiers from the front allowed the Ukrainian troops to advance without conflict. Ukrainian commanders thanked the retreating Russian soldiers and stated that if they surrendered, Ukrainian army would protect the surrendering soldiers and provide all kinds of assistance. The published images spread very quickly on social media in a short time. Ukraine's intelligence service said it received more than 650 calls from its distribution line after the video went viral on the internet. Because the Russians do not allow their retreating soldiers to return to their country. Due to community rules, I cannot share the video with you. Also, due to the rules, I will not be able to explain the events in detail. You can find the videos by doing a short search. It was stated that after the Eastern Front, Russian soldiers deserted a mass in the Zaporozhye region. In its report, Ukrainian General Staff announced that more than 200 Russian soldiers had fled from the Zaporozhye region. It was learned that Russian troops began to withdraw in the Zaporozhye region. The increasing pressure of Ukrainian army in the region and the start of ground operations caused Russian soldiers to flee. According to the statements, Russia sent Rosgvardia troops to the city of Primorsk to conduct search operations. Preliminary data shows that more than 200 Russian soldiers were searched. In addition, General Staff recently confirmed that an S-300 anti-aircraft missile system, 8 different types of military equipment, and an ammunition depot were destroyed in Zaporizhzhia Oblast. General Staff also reported that more than 150 Russian soldiers were wounded. As a result of the operations, more than 70 Russian soldiers were neutralized. While the conflicts continued, harsh statements came from the Kremlin. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov used harsh words in his statement calling on Kiev to accept Russia's terms, and the word is in Kiev and Washington. Either they accept our offer or Russian army will settle the matter, he said. As you know, Kiev stated many times about 4 months ago that no Russian ultimatum will be taken seriously. Russian President Vladimir Putin announced 2 days ago that his country is ready to negotiate with all parties in the Ukraine war. But we all know the terms of Putin and the Kremlin. In this process, Putin and the Kremlin say that if the conditions are accepted, they will sit at the negotiating table. Putin's most important condition is the surrender of Ukrainian army. However, Kiev stated that Putin lives in a fantasy world. Kiev still does not make realistic statements from the Kremlin. We do not take the statements made seriously. We will speak our words at the front, he said. Shortly after Putin's statement, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov made an ultimatum-like statement today, demanding that Ukraine accept Russia's terms and surrender the territories Russia wants. Speaking to TASS news agency, Russian minister said, "Ukraine is well aware of our proposals to eliminate threats to Russia's security. There is nothing to do but to accept these proposals amicably. Otherwise, Russian army will deal with this issue." About an hour after Lavrov's statements, Kiev reiterated that they would respond at the front. As I have noted, Kiev has declared many times that no ultimatum will be accepted. After this process, the Kremlin needs to make more realistic and fair statements. Because the Russian army is in a very difficult situation and the prolongation of the war with each passing day will cause the Russian economy and army to collapse even more. We have come to the end of another video. In the coming hours, we will continue to convey the developments to you quickly and accurately. We continue to inform you objectively about the events. You can like the videos to support us. You can also subscribe to the channel to make it easier to follow new videos. I wish you all happy days. See you.